Here we have the Seiko Prospex SPB453 and the Tudor Pelagos 39. While they're both from two different price ranges and two different manufacturers, they both share some similarities in their design, which makes for an interesting comparison. Here are the dimensions and specs. The SPB453 comes in at 40mm against the Pelagos 39's 39mm diameter. Their lug-to-lugs are very close at 46.4mm for the Seiko and 47mm on the Tudor. Lug widths also differ at 20mm on the SPB453 versus 21mm on the Pelagos 39, and they have quite a big difference in height between the two, with the Seiko towering at 13mm against the 11.8mm thickness of the Pelagos 39. Water resistance here can be surprising for some, as we're getting 300 meters on the SPB453 and 200 meters on the Tudor. In terms of power reserve, the SPB453 has 72 hours from its 6R55 caliber, and in similar fashion, the Pelagos 39 has 70 hours from its MT5400 movement. Taking a look at the dials, the similarities run deeper than having black dials. Both watches have similar executions to them, featuring subtle sunburst finishes with some slight differences. The SPB453 has a brown hue to it, while the Pelagos 39 has a grey tone, and both effects really come to life in the sunlight or under lights. It's interesting that these two incorporate sunburst finishes instead of plain or glossy black dials. I think they make them more dynamic and adds a bit of pop. When under low light situations, both dials calm down and present more of a flat black that gives each watch a more traditional look. This combination of muted black with highlighting sunburst makes the watches more interesting to look at, but retains their under the radar and simple aesthetic, making them deceptively versatile. The SPB453 has a white printed minute track, whereas the Pelagos 39 has a chapter ring with white markings, and both utilize crisp white text on their dials, which work well with their black canvases. And the Tudor has an additional line of red Pelagos text. This gives it an added point of interest and really does stand out despite how small of a detail it is, especially when placed next to the monochrome theme of the SPB453. One thing to note here is the SPB453 includes a circular date window for the date function, while the Pelagos opts to leave out the function for a cleaner dial. Looking at their hour markers, both watches stray from the usual circular layout, featuring geometric forms with a rectangular dominant layout on the Seiko all around, including a double bar marker at 12, and a combination of squares and rectangles for the Pelagos, with rectangles for the 3, 6 and 9 markers, a triangle at 12 and squares for the rest. The SPB453 has polished Lume field indices, adding an element of flash to its dial, while the Pelagos 39 utilizes solid blocks of Lume, giving the watch a flatter look, yet gives it an interesting visual experience when you look closely at the freestanding Lume. And speaking of Lume, the Seiko offers a green glow versus a blue glow on the Tudor. You will also notice lumed bezel markings on the Pelagos 39, and while the Seiko has a decent brightness level, the lume on the Pelagos 39 completely dominates it. Side by side, the indices layout have similar appearances, and while they do offer a different option compared to the generic diver layout, the Pelagos has a closer resemblance to the traditional format if that's what you're looking for. The hands on each watch also complement their hour markers, with the Seiko following suit with its rectangular theme, using slender, half-brushed and half-polished hands which come to a shallow point, along with a rectangle-tipped, polished seconds hand. The Pelagos features Tudor's iconic snowflake handset, which offers a matching geometric look and is finished with a white color to blend in with the lume and maintain cohesion with its hour markers. The Seiko uses contrasting finishing to make its hands stand out against the dial, whereas the Pelagos uses contrasting colors to make its hands more legible against the dark black backdrop. Coming to the bezels, the SPB453 uses an aluminium bezel insert versus a ceramic insert on the Pelagos 39. They're both black, and again, just like their handsets, the bezels match their dials quite well. The matte, fine, grainy finish provided from aluminium works wonders with the matte, grainy texture on the SPB453's dial, creating a look that's under the radar and leans into its toolwatch purpose. While the insert on the Pelagos 39 is ceramic, it's not your usual glossy finish. Instead, we get a radial brushed disc, which plays off the radial brushed dial extremely well, like the lines are radiating from the center of the watch head to the edge of the bezel. Its finish allows it to take on a more greyish appearance, thanks to the way it reacts to light, and this in turn pairs well with the subtle sunburst finish found on its dial, giving the watch a faded look and is a unique take on what is usually done. The execution of dial and bezel on both watches make both of them great options for vintage-inspired timepieces. The matte appearance of the Seiko and the faded effect of the Tudor help to give a nostalgic sensation, and while they use different materials and finishing, the aims of each watch are clear, highlighting their rugged nature with nods to their heritage. The aluminium on the SPB453 will be much more prone to damage compared to the ceramic found on the Pelagos 39, so that is something to keep in mind. In terms of bezel construction, both have a coin edge architecture with sloping inserts, but the teeth on the Pelagos 39 are noticeably sharper and deeper, giving it a more aggressive look. It also sits closer to the case compared to the SPB453, but does protrude beyond it, whereas the SPB453's bezel stays within the sides of the case. Individually, their bezel actions are great, and I like how each of them feel, but when you go back and forth between the two, the Pelagos 39 has a much better feeling to it. It's extremely satisfying to use with an amazing tactile feedback and a solid sound. Its more aggressive teeth also makes it much easier to turn in comparison. While the SPB453's action isn't as good, it still feels nice to use. It's not as audible and the clicks aren't as enjoyable as they're much softer, but it's still fantastic and fidget friendly. Continuing the theme of different materials, the cases also differ, with steel for the SPB 453 and titanium for the Pelagos 39. Now, the titanium does have a darker grey hue, but the dyed shield coating on the Seiko does darken the steel a tad bit compared to other watches. Of course, with titanium, you will get lightweight properties, and the Pelagos 39 definitely feels a lot lighter than the Seiko. Now, this is somewhat a double-edged sword for me, as I quite like the heft of steel, especially on a dive watch, but the lightness of titanium is unquestionably more comfortable, so it's really a matter of preference here. I neither like or dislike the titanium, but it's something to consider if you've yet to try on the watch. Both cases incorporate beveled edges in different finishes, polished for the SPB 453 and completely brushed on the Pelagos 39. The polished accents on the Seiko's case ties in well with its polished bezel, hour markers and handset, and the brushed theme of the Tudor blends well with its absence of flashy elements and flows into its crown guards effortlessly. Looking at their profiles, the SPB 453 has a sleeker appearance given how thin its midcase is compared to the slab side of the Pelagos 39. Not only that, the polished bevels also help to give off an illusion of a slimmer silhouette because it reflects the complexion of your skin and surroundings. The construction of the lug area is also different, with a straight end style on the SPB 453 and your typical curved style on the Pelagos 39. The lugs on the Seiko are also blockier in comparison, whereas the Tudor's lugs taper and curve off to a shallow point. The Seiko has drilled lugs for easier strap changes, and its straight lug shape makes straps feel right at home. However, the Pelagos 39 does come with an additional rubber strap option using the original end links. The SPB453 utilizes male end links, so there will be some protrusion from the case. However, they follow the curve of the wrist well. The Pelagos 39, however, opts for female end links, so they will contour with the wrist much earlier for a closer fit, and these end links on the Tudor fit much better to the case versus the Seiko, as they have a tighter tolerance. Both watches have a 3-link construction to their bracelets, but there are some differences between them. The SPB453's links have a curved profile to them, compared to the flatter look of the Pelagos 39, and they don't taper as dramatically as the Tudor. Just like the case, the Pelagos 39's bracelet is completely brushed, and just like the case on the Seiko, the sides of its bracelet is polished for a minimal touch of flash. The clasp on the Seiko has polished beveled edges just like the case, with a fold over lock and push buttons to release the mechanism. It's milled with 2 points of micro adjustment and has a stamped diver's extension that can be finicky to get to and put away. The Tudor has an all-brushed locking folding clasp with an inbuilt on-the-fly adjustment system, which works wonderfully, and also includes a diver's extension that is easy to operate and stow away. Both clasps get the job done, but the Pelagos 39 does edge it out with its ease of use and on-the-fly adjustment system. However, it feels very long in comparison, and despite the SPB453's clasp looking bulky, it feels better during wear, as its diver's extension is articulated, allowing it to follow the curve of your wrist. Both watches are comfortable, but I think the SPB453 feels slightly better for me. Its edges aren't as sharp, and while the clasp is bulky, it doesn't feel as bulky as it is because of the way it's constructed with that articulating extension. The Pelagos 39, on the other hand, is let down by its rather long clasp. The watch is very lightweight, but the clasp is still noticeable during wear, and the sharp crown guards and slab sides do tend to dig into the wrist at times. Overall, both watches share very similar design choices. Both offer a classic diver look with differentiating elements, and both are an appealing watch to a majority of people. Now, there is quite a difference in price between the two, and it's not as evident as I thought it would be. The SPB453 does a good job at holding its ground against the Pelagos 39, especially with its increased water resistance and power reserve. And while the 6R55's accuracy rating is far from that of the MT5400, mine is performing extremely well, running much better than the specified -15 to +25 seconds a day, but is still less accurate than the Pelagos 39, and who knows how well it will hold up in the long run. The Pelagos 39 does feel more refined in the hand, and it's to be expected given the price difference. However, the lightweight sensation of titanium can cheapen the feel of the watch for some. All in all, I'm a big fan of both of these watches, and while they aren't perfect, they do make for fantastic dive watch options. Thank you for checking out the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about each watch, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more watch content. I'll see you in the next one.